Welcome to I Drink Your podcast.
Oh gosh, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You leave me no choice. Here comes the smolder.
Wait, you like that?
No.
You don't like that?
No, I don't like that.
No, how about that? You like that?
A little better.
Bread makes you fat?
Does this count as annoying?
Just tell me what you want me to fuck!
Not you, and not you.
Okay, I think it's time to take off your clothes and jump me.
$1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool?
I drink your podcast! I drink it up!
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of I Drink Your Podcast. With me today is Emily.
Hello, everyone.
And we've got Dylan here with us.
Hey y'all, hope y'all doing okay.
First off, thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of A Prophet. We really appreciate your patronage and your continued support of our podcast. And please, if you have not already done so, give us a rating on Spotify. Just a quick 5-star. All you got to do is have listened to like 1 minute of our show, and you can just give us a quick rating. It would really help our podcast grow, and we would really appreciate it. So please take the time to do that. And if on any other service that you use for your podcast, if it has a rating system, give us a rating.
We would,
it would help.
Love it.
It'd make us feel good.
It really would. It is sad to see that we don't have enough averaged to see that there's a number of people that have actually rated us. So do it. Do it.
Do it. Do it.
As Ben said, we watched A Prophet, and unfortunately, you can't find it streaming anywhere for free, but it is available for rent from many streaming services.
For how fast these streaming services take down and put back up movies, like by the time this movie comes out, it could be back on a streaming service. Like
That's true.
I swear to God, the Jackass movies weren't anywhere to be found, and then all of a sudden one day, all of them were there. But before we get started talking about A Prophet, what is in everyone's glass today? And we're going to start with Dylan.
All right, I'm going a little bit. I've been kind of going abstract all the time, and I'm going to keep going with that theme. I am drinking Samuel Adams. Now, what does this have to do with the movie? Samuel Adams was part of the Founding Fathers with John Adams, and during the Revolutionary War, who helped us in that war? The French.
Fucking French.
The French did. And where was this movie made? France. And it's in French subtitles. So, Sam Adams, everybody. That's what I'm drinking.
It's in English subtitles, but yeah, I know what you mean.
It's subtitled, but it's in French. There we go.
Emily, how about you?
I went a little bit outside the box, I think. So, first off, I gotta call you out, Ben. A Prophet? It just sounds so weird than A Prophet. Ugh. What the fuck?
A Prophet.
A Prophet.
Un Prophet.
Un Prophet.
A Prophet. Wow. I just you said it twice and I went, ugh. A Prophet. Anyway, when I was thinking about this and the religious connotations that are kind of in there, I was thinking back to my own times when I actually went to a formal religious place. Yeah, United Church of Christ. I don't do that anymore, but I was thinking about communion and all the grape juice that we used to drink. It was a great time. And then I was thinking, you know what? Malik crushed it. And then that prostitute too. He really crushed that prostitute. So I am drinking a grape crush.
Wow. We're really going abstract today.
I know, right? Ben, what about you?
I did not go nearly as abstract. I based it off of my favorite character, who is the Italian mobster. I went with a cocktail called the Corsican. And it is bourbon, gold rum, sweet vermouth, grenadine, and orange bitters.
You know, I didn't know there was a gold rum. I mean, I knew there was silver and white and brown and spiced,
yeah.
But gold. Is it literally a light golden color?
It's like a yellowish amber color.
Beautiful.
I actually did look up cocktails online, and there is one that is called the Prison Bitch. And that's vodka, triple sec, amaretto, cranberry juice, and orange juice.
The bitch part must be the cranberry juice.
Probably.
I guess, yeah.
You know, it's also funny that this movie kind of talks about Corsica because there was a point when I lived on the island south of Corsica. And so, like, I actually recognize a lot of the dialect and language of Corsica because, one, I was fluent in Italian for a long time, but also, like, northern Sardinia, there are Corsicans living there.
So you're just like Malik in this movie. You were a fucking spy spying on the Corsicans.
Apparently,
Yep.
apparently, my host family and I were gonna go and take their boat and go around Corsica, and then we ended up not because the host dad had to work. But like, you know, it was just weird to be like, "Oh, I know what that island is. Cool."
Nice.
Sorry, super random. Anyway, what have you all seen recently?
I was fortunate enough to get to go on a movie day excursion with the wonderful Wesley from our podcast. And we went and saw 3 movies that day. We saw Spider-Man, which I had seen before, and then we saw Moonfall, and then we finished it off with Jackass Forever. And I love the way Wesley put it after the movies, which is, you know, Spider-Man was the best movie we saw today, but it was also the least entertaining. And I think that's a great way to put it, because Moonfall is not a good movie, but my God, is it a fun watch.
Really?
Yes, I love disaster movies. If you've heard me say on this podcast before, every New Year we watch a disaster movie. We can stop doing that because every New Year we're going to watch Moonfall, and that's just the way it is.
I'm up to that.
It is so much fun in how fucking absurd it is. Literally within 3 minutes, 2 different characters said this sentence: "All the lunar shuttles are in museums."
What?
All right.
Yeah, that was a plot point that more than one character had to point out in order to get us to where we needed to go.
So Ben, after you watched the 4th Jackass movie, I'm assuming that's why you mentioned that all of the Jackass movies are now available for streaming.
Yes. So
because you had to go back and watch all of them.
I did, yeah. I didn't watch Jackass 3 because we're actually going to be doing it for the podcast here in a couple.
No.
We might not have Emily on for that one. It's a bonus episode because it's a sequel. So if you want to miss that one, Emily, you can.
No.
But Jackass 4 was a lot of fun. And if you like the other Jackass movies, you're going to like this one. If you don't like the other Jackass movies, you are not going to like this one.
All right.
Dylan, what have you been watching?
Well, I'm on the Ben train as well, where I did watch all of the Jackass movies on Paramount Plus. But the one thing I did watch in the last couple of days, I am completely caught up with The Peacemaker on HBO Max.
How is it?
It's so good.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if it's my age that I'm getting older, but when I watch the show, I'm watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's, and in my head, I'm like watching this stuff and I'm going, oh man, this is so funny, but I'm not laughing. But in my head, I'm just like, that's funny. I really find that funny, but I'm not laughing at it. So
you're distinguished in your humor now.
So I don't know if that means the show is not funny or I'm just becoming older and I'm just like, okay, I don't have to laugh at this to know that it's funny.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I'm excited to check that out.
Yeah, John Cena, man. I always thought Dwayne Johnson was the best actor to come out of wrestling. Really,
he is.
I think John Cena is coming in close. He's coming in close. He's pretty damn good on this show.
Ben, let's make sure Rachel doesn't listen to this episode.
No, she will not agree with anything you just said.
She will punch you in the face.
She'll rock bottom his ass.
and I'll take it like a prison bitch.
Because you're a rock bottom.
Oh boy. Well, I watched Vox Machina on Amazon Prime. So I actually am not a fan of Critical Role, but my husband's obsessed. And I know that these voice actors and this friend group, I know it's an incredible show. It's an incredible podcast, but I'm sorry, I do not have 3 hours to listen to one episode where they only get through part of a D&D game. Like, eventually, maybe someday I'll get into it, but when there are hundreds of episodes, it's just overwhelming. It's like the same reason I haven't started One Piece. There's hundreds of episodes. So this is actually perfect timing because I have loved hearing snippets and like highlights from it because I love the voice actors. I recognize them from so many different places and the stories are really fun. So this is actually perfect that they've created a animated show. And I mean, I love animated shows on top of adult animation. Like that, this is fun. It's silly, it's serious and heartwarming, and I love hearing the voices that I recognize from a lot of different places. So, highly recommend.
All right. Yeah, I can honestly agree with you there, Emily, with the podcast. I've tried listening to it too, and it's we've played D&D, Ben and I have, and there comes a point where there's so much bullshitting going on before you're playing that it gets really tiresome, and that's kind of what I found with that podcast is I'm just like, all right, enough of the side talk and this and that. Let's get to some actual D&D.
Oh, see, I don't see it that way. I just can't handle the length. It's just too long. I know Wesley loves it.
But I would say that goes with the length, where it's like if I'm downloading this podcast to listen to it and it's about you guys playing D&D, I want to hear some D&D.
I think that's one of the reasons I like Adventure Zone so much more than Critical Role, is because Adventure Zone is so much more narrative based. It's almost like you're listening to more like a 60-hour audiobook because of how well the dungeon master like builds this world and tells this story. There's very little actual D&D that happens in Adventure Zone, but it's just like this role-playing story that you get just wrapped up in, and it's beautiful.
Well, Matt Mercer, if you are listening to this for any stupid fucking reason, I'm just going to say that I think you're doing a great job, and I think all of your other people are awesome. I just can't handle 3 hours for hundreds of episodes. So whatever these fools are talking about, you're great.
Well, I'll also plug Brian Posehn's Nerd Poker. That's a pretty good one too, I thought. It's kind of the same with where they're doing a lot of bullshitting and joking around, but it's only like an hour and a half or an hour and 15, 20 minutes, so it goes faster.
Well, that's what we've been watching recently, but another one that we watched recently is the Fonz's favorite French movie, A Prophet.
Fuck you.
See what I did, Emily?
We
watched A Prophet, which is currently at 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and was France's nominee for Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars in this year. So this was the best that France felt it had to offer, and we'll talk about whether we agree with that. So this movie was directed by Jacques Audier, known for movies like Read My Lips and The Beat That My Heart Skipped, which I guarantee is movies we've never heard of before, because we are not foreign cinephiles. But he does typically write the movies that he directs, and this is not the last movie of his that we will do in this decade. So a little sneak peek. We will be seeing him again.
Okay.
That's exciting.
When he makes his debut with an American film.
Cool.
Oh.
And then we're going to get into who's starring, and we're only going to call out 2 actors in this. Anytime we do these foreign movies, if it's not headlined by someone that we all know, we're just going to kind of go quickly through it. So this movie stars Tahar Rahim, who played Malik, our main character. This was his first leading role, and he actually got this role after meeting the director when they shared a car from a different movie set. So he met this guy on a different set and won him over.
Huh.
And then the other actor we're going to call out is Neil Arestrup, who played Caesar, the Corsican. He had a 35-year acting career prior to this movie, including the 2007 movie that I most regret that we did not do an episode on, which is The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which is another French movie.
Oh, yeah. You talked about how amazing that is.
Yeah.
So I still need to watch that.
Same here.
Well, it's very good. And granted, he doesn't have a big role in that one, but he does show up. So, man, I wish we would have gotten to that. But we didn't. We did get to this one, though. And Emily and I had both not seen this movie. So Emily wrote a synopsis knowing the movie was French and called A Prophet.
Here's what I thought. A prophet is about a French man who believes he's the next prophet of a large cult. He truly believes in the cult of worshiping heavenly food and he goes on a pilgrimage to find the nectar of the gods for his cult.
There's a nugget of a really fun movie there that I really want to make.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a fun idea.
Thank you.
Okay, not at all what we got in this movie.
No.
I mean, this movie was fun, I think, but definitely not this.
Can I announce our star of that movie?
Who's the star of my movie, Dylan?
Stanley Tucci.
No, he's French. He's a French guy.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but does it have to be a French movie?
Well, she said it did.
All right. Well, I'm still going Stanley Tucci.
Okay.
I love me some Tucci.
He could probably play a Frenchman, but I don't know. Dylan, what was this movie actually about, though?
All right. I have the DVD synopsis right here. After arriving at a jail, 19-year-old Malik is cornered by the leader of the ruling Corsican gang and forced to carry out a number of dangerous missions, including drug trafficking and brutal hits. Over time, Malik is able to earn the gang leader's confidence and rise up the prison ranks, all while secretly devising his own plans.
Ooh.
So I have to know just some general thoughts to start off. Kind of what were you expecting? Because, like, obviously I was expecting food and Frenchmen and whatnot. I wasn't expecting a prison. I wasn't expecting, like, this Islam versus Corsican gangsters. Like, what were you expecting this movie to have?
I honestly thought when the movie first started, I'll first say this. I thought there was something wrong with the copy that I was watching because just how it started with that kind of fade in, fade out thing. I was like, is this working?
Mm-hmm.
Is this, I was confused. But I honestly just thought, okay, this is just going to be like a character study of just this guy. That's it. You know, that nothing huge, that there's not going to be anything too huge going on or anything like that. It's just going to be this guy who, in the beginning of the movie, also kind of claimed somewhat that he was innocent. Like when the first prison guard kind of is talking to him about what's your religion, what's this, what's that. And he said, so you like hitting cops? He goes, I didn't do anything. You know, so it kind of had me going, okay, this is maybe like a French Shawshank, where it's just a guy who claims he didn't do it, but he's got to just do his time, and that's it. And the little things that happen.
I got this movie confused with another foreign movie from around this time, which is called A Separation, which is about like an Iranian family. So I thought that that's what we were going to be getting, was like this family drama, and right off the bat, thrown into a world that I was not anticipating with the prison stuff and all the crime. It was a welcome surprise. I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it does have a lot to owe to prison movies of the past. Like you talk about Shawshank, I got major Shawshank vibes, but I also got major Martin Scorsese crime vibes in this movie. Like this movie reminded me so much of Goodfellas, and really The Irishman is the one that I think Irishman maybe kind of circled back in on this one, because it reminded me a lot of The Irishman. Also, it was very fucking long, just like The Irishman.
Yeah, I had to watch this movie in about 4 or 5 parts, just because with kids and school and all that kind of stuff, and getting dinner ready and everything, I couldn't really be listening to it in the background because I wouldn't understand a damn word they were saying. So I had to be pretty attentive this time.
So as I was watching it, I didn't know really what I was expecting. Like, I know that I make a synopsis, but I usually don't assume that it's going to be anything like the synopsis that I have.
Don't peel the curtain away, Emily.
Oh my God, Ben, seriously. Like, I put something out there, but I don't expect that it's going to be true. I don't expect that I'm right. So watching this movie and seeing Malik, like, I didn't even see a poster for this, and I knew it was French. I was like, this is going to be a character study, like you said, Dylan. This is really going to be focused on his journey, his character journey. And I felt like I got so much plot that didn't end up getting me to something great until like the halfway point. I felt like I wanted to have this one through line, and I think I was lost for the first half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. I don't know if this is maybe just the style of film or if it's something I've noticed in foreign films that I've seen. But I kind of feel that foreign films do that a lot, where it kind of seems like they're just throwing a bunch of stuff at you and you have to try to figure it out. And then right around the halfway point, it suddenly starts to become clear, which is really kind of interesting. I like that style because one example I'm thinking of is like, it's a different country, but like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That movie had so much stuff that they were throwing at you.
Ben doesn't like that movie.
Okay, that's fine.
That's not true.
I love it.
That's fine. But I'm just saying, it's a movie where up until about the halfway point, you're kind of like, who are some of these people? I don't know who all these people are. And then about halfway through, you're like, okay,
right.
Now it's all starting to come into focus. And I've kind of noticed that with a few foreign films that I've watched, that it kind of has that style to it.
You know, Dylan, I think that you might be onto something. And I think it may be because Americans really are stupider than the rest of the world. I don't know if that is like a blanket statement, but as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, yeah, I could see that where you're expecting your audience to be smart enough to just like go with it and make connections before things start happening. And now I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I could see that being a certain style that Americans maybe don't do as much because we spoon feed things.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that the journey we're taking out in the first half of the movie very much mirrors the experience that Malik is having in this prison, being new and being young. Like, yes, we don't understand fully what's going on, but neither does he. Like, he's kind of just wrapped up into this world that he doesn't understand and he doesn't know his place in. And we, the audience, feel what he's feeling through that.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I legit wrote that down. I said the setup was a lot. I didn't really know where it was going, which is fine. But generally the beginning was kind of convoluted and confusing and long. And then I said, although looking back on it, maybe it was like that because Malik didn't know shit about anything in prison and we were learning and following along just like him. The audience needed to be in the dark too. So, same brain, yes. Ben!
We're getting good at this.
That's very true. But I would also kind of agree with what Emily is saying, that I would say in general, most American audiences might not be totally game for that. They kind of want, I want it given to me right away. I want you to tell me the story of what's going on right away. Not many people like the kind of character-driven movies as much as they used to. I would say the last great, oh God, what movie was it? It'll come back to me, but there are some really great character-driven movies where you're like, Inglourious Bastards. I would say that was kind of one of the last ones where it was most of it was foreign in a foreign language and people didn't complain about it. And B, it kind of did have a story of like, what's going on here throughout the beginning. And then all the players started to fit together and all the pieces started to go together. And then you're like, oh my God, this movie's amazing.
See, I don't think we can just say that Americans don't understand it, because there's a movie from this year that I saw that I was very confused by, but a lot of people like it and it made a lot of money, and that's Dune, where Dune wasn't spoon-feeding you everything, and you almost needed to have read the book to understand some of the stuff that was happening early on, because it was not fully fleshed out, because it didn't need to be at that point. It was slowly building the world. But I don't think we can just say that like these movies don't work for Americans. I think we're underestimating the American audience a little bit. I
don't think that we're saying that. I think it's more of it's not a style that Americans are used to.
Yes. That's what I would say,
like
with
a general population, right? When you throw this on the screen, a general population isn't going to go see this. And I think that we're just kind of speculating at this point. It was just a thought that I'm like, okay, maybe there's something there. So thanks for challenging us, Ben.
I do think, though, that there are so many directors nowadays that have international roots that are now making it into mainstream American media. Like you think of like the Three Amigos, Inarritu, Del Toro, and Cuarón. You think of Denis Villeneuve. You've got all these guys that are starting out in these foreign movies, which we're going to be doing on this podcast. We're going to do Villeneuve's first movie and see where he started.
Yeah.
But I think that they're bringing in these international sensibilities into American movies now that are making it a lot more palatable. Bong Joon-ho is another one.
Yeah.
Right. And I think just thinking back to where we were at this point, you know, Dylan brought up Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The fact that it's 2022 and now Americans are starting to be interested in longer movies that are kind of puzzle pieces that you have to put together, and just kind of the patience that you need to get to a point of understanding in the art and in the direction that the director is choosing to go in. I think that is saying something, that maybe we're not as narrow focused as we want, or the people that are in the places of executive decisions are allowing more of these directors to be a part of something amazing.
I mean, look no further than that this year for Oscar nominations, a 3-hour retelling of Uncle Vanya is up for Best Picture. Like,
right.
These international movies are permeating our American society.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was just going to add one quick little anecdote. When I was in high school, I worked at the Regal movie theater in Eagan, Minnesota. And when I was working there was when Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out, and it had just so much buzz behind it and push. And I loved it. I thought it was great when I saw it, and I didn't really mind the whole reading the subtitles. But one day I was overhearing customers that were either saw it or were going to see it, and they just kind of went, God, I would have loved that movie so much more if I didn't have to read it. And I was just like, that's a bummer. That's a bummer, man. You're kind of missing out. Also, I'll say some customers during Blair Witch, I could overhear them saying, yeah, this totally happened to real people. This is totally real. So, you know, but we are getting better. Things are improving.
And to be fair, Dylan, you did text me. These subtitles make it very difficult for me to take notes. So subtitles can get in the way of viewing if you're not used to that. So
that is very true. But what I kind of meant when I texted you about that was just the idea of not necessarily like, oh, this movie would have been better. I don't think if this movie was in English or French, it would have affected my enjoyment any more than what I already had of the movie.
Interesting.
I didn't think it was a hindrance in just taking notes for the podcast because I couldn't really take my eyes away from the screen. But I don't think it really affected my enjoyment.
I think putting this film in English the way it's filmed would not work because you'd constantly be questioning why everyone in this French prison is speaking English. And I also don't think that doing an American version of this movie would work because of how deeply ingrained the culture is for these two groups of gangs. Like you've got the Arab group and you've got the
translation.
The Corsican. No, there's not.
You could always try to pit like some sort of gang against some sort of group in our culture in America. But again, like it's not the same. It's not the same story. There's not the same connotations. You just can't do that. You have to tell a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, even though this story is completely fabricated and made up, it just felt so authentic and real. And I think it's because it was rooted in the cultures that were projected on screen. It was incredible to like sit there and be a part of it and experience things that felt like it was a true story to me. Even though I knew it wasn't, it felt so real.
And I think that goes to like how we were discussing style, that this was kind of him learning from where he was, a man who had zero religious thought.
He came in knowing no one. He knew no one on the outside. He knew no one. He had no connections to anyone. He was just a lost kid.
Yeah, he was just came in and was like, "Oh, I guess I'm just here. I don't know." But by the end of it, he seemed to find kind of who he was in the end. And that kind of, I think, goes along with the style where we didn't really know who he was in the beginning of the movie, just like he did. And then by the end of it, we're like, all right, I know who this guy is now.
And the realism feeling extends also to the way that it's filmed, and especially the depiction of violence within the movie. That scene where he's practicing putting the razor blade in his cheek, and you're seeing him constantly try, and the scene where he kills Rayab. Like, you're getting a lot of very real depictions of violence that just make this world lived in, and just something that you expect to see walking into a French prison. I just assume that this is how all French prisons look at this point.
I'll say this, being the horror fan that I am, when I saw that scene, it made me cringe. Because, I can watch, like, the Freddys, the Jasons, the this and the that. That's all over the top.
Yeah, they have a fantastical element.
It's so fantastical. This looked real. And that's where it makes me cringe while watching. Because I was just like, I think I wrote the exact note was like brutal. Brutal death. Oh my God. Was what I said when I took note when that happened. And I had to kind of look away. Because I was like,
Right.
I don't need to see that. Nope.
Right. And watching Malik through his journey, especially in the first half, where he's learning how to sew these jeans and he's getting help, it's so subtle and wonderful to see that. Or even some of the details with locking the door with a string in a way, or swinging things back and forth between the prison cells out the window
and whatnot.
Right, the handoffs, and even just being in the yard and the interactions and the monotony of these people always do this, these people always do this. It just felt like we were thrown in there, and it didn't feel like a movie. It felt like this is how prisons run, like you said, Ben.
It reminded me of a 2007 movie that we watched also, which was Eastern Promises. The realism and the feel of that movie and this movie, it had a lot of parallels to it, and especially the way that it kind of had this unflinching look at killing, like the way in that Eastern Promises where the throat's slit and you expect it to cut away, but no, it's showing you the exact slice all the way through. That was also in this movie where it was this unflinching look at violence.
Or like to compare again, Eastern Promises to this movie, the shower scene in both movies, when Viggo Mortensen in Eastern Promises, just the sound of him hitting that hard linoleum and everything in that Russian spa was just brutal to listen to and everything. And that kind of went with the scene where the three guys take socks full of batteries.
Yep.
That was just, again, it was just like, oh my God, that's just brutal. That would be so painful. So painful.
It shows the resourcefulness of people that are desperate. And I didn't expect to see something like that. Now, I haven't seen like a lot of crime movies, but seeing that in the imaginations of these characters, like, this is how I'm going to have to do it because this is all I can use. You're right, Dylan. It was brutal. It was ingenious and shocking.
Well, before we dive into the good, bad, and weird of this movie, I wrote a letter today.
Yeah?
It's, I'm just going to read it because I've got a lot to say.
Okay.
Dear, dear.
Oh my God.
You are the horse of the forest.
What?
Majestic, elegant, and in a shit ton of movies. It's not fair that horses get all the accolades for being great additions to film while also usually getting to survive the movie. You aren't as lucky. If you're in a movie, you typically die. And sometimes in truly dramatic fashion. By the way, bravo to that deer that pulled off that Meet Joe Black level hit by a car stunt in this movie. That was some great acting on your part. I guess what this letter really is, dear, is an apology and a promise. I'm sorry that you always get the front end of the vehicle. And I promise that if I ever get the chance to make a movie, that there will be a scene where you don't have to die. In fact, I may even let you kill a horse. With a gun. Start practicing holding a gun. Signed, Ben.
All I can see is that I think it's Adventure Time, or I can't remember what it is, but it's an animated show where the deer takes off the hooves and there are fingers.
Yes. Well, now that that's out of the way, let's get into the good, bad, and the weird, and specifically starting with who won this movie for you. Go ahead, Emily.
I originally had an idea, but as we were talking, I had to change. I gotta call out the script. You said the director wrote the script, Ben?
Yeah.
I loved it. I think while I was watching it, I wasn't appreciating it as much as now when I was writing out my notes, because I don't really take notes during movies unless I'm like, oh, I need to pause this and write this down. I prefer to kind of reflect back on my experience and then go watch some of those scenes again, or I'll look at pictures, or I'll read the actual script if I can find it to see what those scenes were again, just to remind myself of the experience. And I found that even though the script felt sometimes meandering and confusing to me because the story itself was confusing in points, or at points, excuse me, but the little pieces of humor in the writing sold it to me, because you have to make light of certain situations and you have to find some sort of brotherhood in this experience. There are points where they had these witty responses. There was this scene with Latrash and Malik in the car, and Malik gets his wrists bound and he says, "Is this necessary?" And the response is, "Doesn't bother me." And I loved that. I loved the dialogue. Or when Jordy and Malik are talking about the amount of drugs that Jordy wants to sell and deal, all the hash he wants to sell and deal, he puts it up to his eyes and he says, "It looks like this. You can't see anything behind it." So clever that it took me a while to like process what that meant. And, you know, just the way that Malik responds to Luciani, the mob boss, the Corsican mob boss, and the way that he did it, sometimes Luciani wouldn't even notice the kind of things that Malik would say, where we noticed Malik was really smart and capable and also funny. Like there were really beautiful moments in this.
I'm going to piggyback off yours, Emily, because mine is also a screenwriting decision that was made. And we called out the realism in this movie, but the thing that I think put this movie over the edge for me was the moments of surrealism within the movie. Specifically, the way that Rayab's body kept showing up in Malik's cell afterwards.
Yes.
It has some of my favorite visuals of the entire movie, where he's on fire in some scenes. He's like a smoking person. There's that shot of him laying in bed with the dead body behind him. And that decision is so important because it added this level of humanity to Malik that otherwise wouldn't necessarily have been there. And it would have been a lot more difficult to root for this character if this decision that he was forced into didn't continue to haunt him and be with him throughout the entire movie. You can see that he regrets what he did to Rayab because of the way that it lingers with him. And I think that's really important for his character throughout the movie.
Yeah, I love the visions with him, and especially as they show there's like this developing friendship, you know, and that was some of my favorite parts where, you know, he seemed to depend on Rayab in this guilt, but also need. He needed him to ground him to keep going.
You know, I'm going to give it up for who won to the gentleman who played Cesar.
Good pick.
The Corsican. Yeah. And it's because it's so subtle, but fantastic. You know, it's so subtle, but meaningful at the same. I know that doesn't make sense. But like how in the very beginning, he's just you can tell he's a very chest thumping type of guy, you know, and then by the end of it, you see him looking at Malik and he kind of does that little head move, but you know, he's just kind of doing it half-hearted. Like, I know I've lost, I'm done. And by the end of it, he looked like just kind of a defeated man. He didn't look much different, but he looked different enough to make you go, this guy's beaten, and he knows he's beaten. And also, I would say, I still say it takes tremendous acting talent to go from a, you know, hey, I'm just being your bud, to outright anger and just outrage and just breaking into that. is really solid. And he was really good at doing that subtle thing, like with the scene with the spoon. How Malik is just sitting there and he's thinking, oh, he's just going to scold me. And yeah, he's kind of doing that. And then next thing you know, he goes off the rails and pins him down. And it's like, I'm going to gouge your eye out with a spoon if you don't listen to me anymore. It's like, woo.
Yeah, that Caesar performance is by far my favorite performance in the movie. And there's this line around the midway point where the rest of the Corsicans are being sent to other prisons or being released. And Caesar, I think he's talking to one of the guards, and he says, like, he talks about not wanting to die alone in prison, and which turns out to be a prophetic statement, because then the last shot we get of him is him sitting on that bench alone, realizing that Malik is no longer with him. And I mean, it's truly commending his performance for being able to make me feel even a little bit of sympathy for this guy by the end of the movie, which I did feel like he looked like this old, sad, alone man, and it shouldn't have tugged at me, but it did, and I felt bad for him.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. I felt like he was absolutely incredible, even just sitting there. And I never felt like he was kind of buddy-buddy with anyone, but he was in control of the situation no matter what. And it was his calm demeanor at points. And then exactly like you said, Dylan, he would fucking lose it. And you saw the strength and the power that he had and the control that he had over this mob and this gang. And also, I just want to shout out his fucking coat, man.
Yeah, gorgeous coat.
I loved him sitting there with his coat. He looks fancy as fuck.
I would also say what I kind of liked about his performance as well was just that you almost think when he's walking over to Malik, you know, in the very end, that maybe in his head he's thinking, maybe I should not have treated this man like a piece of shit and like a slave and a servant. Then maybe I might still have some power. You know, if I didn't keep everybody at an arm's distance and just be a total piece of garbage to everybody and as violent as I am, maybe I could have held on to this a little bit longer. But nope, I didn't do that. And so now I'm going to get my ass kicked by a couple of Muslim guys and then go sit back on my bench.
I didn't get that, actually. I didn't feel like he had any remorse for what he had done.
I kind of saw that with him kind of walking over there, that he was going to kind of try to do something. Maybe not necessarily, not violent, but he was going to try to do something to get to Malik.
See, I just felt like it was a very begrudging, like, motherfucker, you're going to make me walk over to you? Like, that's kind of the sense I got from him walking over there, was it's like...
Maybe. That could be it, yeah.
Sensing a power dynamic shift a little bit.
Yeah, you can interpret it differently.
Other good that y'all want to talk about?
Oh my God, so many things. Seriously. I gotta say, the hair, makeup, and just like injury stuff that was in this movie, I loved. For example, Malik comes to the prison and he has this giant wound on his cheek. And as time is passing, you see it heal, and it is so well done. I loved that. That was just such a subtle thing that I didn't realize I actually loved. You already brought up the spoon scene, but his eye, first off, just in general, how it looked was so disgusting, but also really well done.
Brutal. It was just brutal.
And honestly, him growing his mustache was the best thing for Malik. Like, he needed that mustache.
I love some of the little details that they placed in the character performances and in just the way that we viewed things. I really enjoyed, my favorite scene of the movie, in fact, is the one where he's killing Rayab, and you see him sitting on the bed, and there's the little trickle of blood coming down the corner of his mouth because the razor blade's in there. Like, I thought that was a really nice touch that added a lot of tension to that scene too. Like, oh my God, is the guy going to see the blood and realize what's going on? So I thought that was really well done. But then there's a scene later where Malik is getting on a plane for the first time and he's getting pat down.
Yeah.
And he opens his mouth. He sticks his tongue out and opens his mouth like they made him do in the prison. And it just shows like how ingrained this routine is for him. And it was just a really nice character touch that I loved.
And even when he was on the plane, just like the enthusiasm and excitement of him looking out the window. I love that they didn't put him in the window seat. I'm so glad they put him in the middle seat because he was just trying to look and experience these things. And it brought back that innocence and kindness in the beginning, or I guess sense of lost little boy, which is kind of weird to say, but oh well, I said it.
No, it was all around. This was a solid. I couldn't really think of anything. Again, we've talked about the story, just that idea of like we came in knowing nothing, just like Malik did, and that was probably one of my favorite things too. Is just that I like movies like that, like the Coen brothers. I know this might not make sense, but with like the Coens, they do a lot of that kind of character development, character story movies where it's just kind of like, all right, we're not going to give you any information on who these people are and why you're here. We're just going to plop you into the situation. And then at some point, we're going to pull you out and roll credits. And I really like that style of filmmaking where we have to learn along with the character.
I do feel like this movie, in being different from the Coen brothers, though, took a very long form way of doing that. Like, it's not just a situation. Like, this movie spans many years and it's kind of like almost the complete story of Malik rising to power, where it's not just like a single situation like you get with No Country for Old Men, where you're literally plopped into Anton Chigurh's world and you just go through what he's going through on any given day. So it's a little different in my eyes than Coen, but I do understand what you're saying.
I think I had a couple other things that I really loved. The scene, kind of going back to what you said, Ben, about Rahab, and when they kind of develop this friendship, even though he's just kind of a ghost. When Malik comes back after being late and gets thrown into solitary confinement after he kills off those bodyguards of the mob boss and, tells the mob boss that it was Cesar that demanded the kill. He's there and he is looking for his friend. Oh my gosh. He like calls out, "Are you there?" And he doesn't say his name. He just says, "Are you there?"
Mm-hmm.
Where, and it was a moment that stilled my heart. I didn't realize how important that was until that moment. Because it had cool dynamics and interesting things where you didn't know if you were losing your mind. Like literally I was sitting there and I was like, is that a slit in his throat and slit in his wrist from that? Yeah, oh, it is. Just little details that I didn't quite notice. But then that moment of him being in solitary confinement and not being able to see Rahab, I think that was like the huge shift where he is fully embedded in this world and probably will stay there.
I just was looking up, Googling, because I was just, don't know why, pictures of Pablo Escobar. And if you look, Pablo Escobar kind of had that wispy kind of mustachy-ness to him and kind of that same kind of a hairstyle. It's kind of, I was like, God, he kind of looked like a young Pablo Escobar. And that probably has nothing to do with the movie whatsoever. But it's just kind of an interesting little,
My favorite shot of the movie is, I think, the shot that exemplifies his rise to power and shows just how crazy of a man he is. And it's the scene where he's gunning down the bodyguards in the car.
He's smiling.
And he's in the front seat and he's got two guys on top of him as like gunfire's raining down. And the camera comes from above, like between the steering wheel. And you just see him smiling there. Like, oh, I love that shot.
And that's honestly really the first time we actually really see him smile in the whole movie.
Well,
there weren't that many moments where he was really, really smiling, like, happily.
I thought there were a lot of scenes where he was with his friend Riyadh, and as he's learning, where there's a lot of smiling going on.
There's a lot of joking between them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's another one of my favorite parts, Riyadh and his family, and just Riyadh in general. There's just so much love and tenderness and sweetness between everyone. And when he got kidnapped, there was just so much fear for his friend, but it was also heartbreaking with the whole like cancer backstory. It was just a lot of rich stuff put into this movie that made me feel the realism full force.
Okay, I know we all liked this movie a lot, but let's talk bad and weird. Was there anything bad?
Well, I kind of already talked about it, but I felt like the setup was just a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how much I appreciated it until the end. But I think I still feel like it could have been cut a little bit differently. Maybe not shorter, but just there needed to be just some slight improvements because I felt like it was still too loose in the beginning. I still liked it, but it was only after reflecting on it.
It definitely needed 15 minutes trimmed off of it.
I would agree.
It was too long.
I would say the one, bad thing, and again, a little anecdote to kind of, I'm rewatching The Wire right now, which is so good. If you haven't watched it, watch it. And when I first watched that show, again, it's loaded with characters, just like this movie is pretty loaded with characters. And until my now second viewing, it was hard to keep the people separated. And that was the one thing I probably didn't like about this movie is there were a lot of people that looked very similar to other people. And I was like, okay, is this the same guy? Is this a different? And that kind of confused me just a little bit. Where just sometimes you were being thrown so many characters that it's like, okay, where are we? Who is this right now? I'm a little confused.
Dylan's a racist. Dylan's a racist.
Fine.
All Corsicans look the same.
All Corsicans look the same.
Well, my problem has to do with the look of the prophetic moments when they happened. I did not like that camera effect that they did with that. I thought it was just too confusing. It kind of moved on the screen a little bit too much and made it hard to understand, which I understand a prophecy is going to be hard to understand, sure. But like it just wasn't, I don't know. I wish they would have done something different with it. And then also for a movie called A Prophet, there should have been more prophetic moments.
Yes.
Instead of mostly just the deer.
The deer was the one. And then therefore he's labeled a prophet. So
right.
I don't know. I wish we had seen, I didn't like the look of them, but I wish we had gotten more of them.
It needed to be a different style, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah. Maybe perhaps even have Cesar have a few moments where, something happens and he says, hey, maybe you should try this. And it goes a different direction. And he goes, how did you know that? How did you know that we should do it a different way?
Because I can see 90 seconds into the future.
There you go.
Stop.
That's high praise.
Fucking Nick Cage, get out of here.
Never. He's always here. Any weird?
Well, most of mine got taken. Like I said the prophet dreams were weird because I just didn't really understand or realize they were dreams. I just really had no idea what was happening. And then Dylan, you brought it up earlier, just like how it was shot in the beginning of the movie with kind of like the faded black. It was like very narrow perspective, but kind of fuzzy on the sides. It was a little weird, but I mean, it was reminiscent of later when he had the spoon on his eye and he couldn't see very well. And I mean, I liked it later, but in the beginning, it still seemed kind of weird.
Well, that's the effect I'm talking about. Like that opening scene was supposed to be a prophetic moment.
Right. And I didn't realize it.
And I still don't understand how it was because it was literally what was happening to him in the moment, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. You know what I honestly thought it was? I thought it was that he had been beaten up like so badly. And this was him coming out of like being knocked out, kind of like how they'll kind of do that in some movies where they're opening their eyes.
Oh my God, it's
like,
Skyrim.
What's going on here?
You're finally awake.
What's going Exactly. It kind of had that thing to it where I was like, is he waking up from something? Was he beaten up? Was it this? Was it that? I don't know. What is this?
Guys, I made a funny joke.
Good for you.
What it was the Skyrim joke?
Yeah.
I've never played Skyrim, so I don't.
I know you haven't. That's why I'm laughing, and I'm very happy about my joke.
I barely have played Skyrim, so there you go.
I also think the razor in his mouth, like, as much as I felt like it added to the story, it was so weird for me that I had to pause the movie multiple times just to get through it. And I know that that's just me. It's my own personal problems to get through things like that. But it took me out of the movie literally because I had to pause it. So
my only weird was the deer. The deer
Flipping
dream.
through the
I was
air?
just, no. The flipping through the air was fine. I actually really appreciated that. It was the
okay,
deer
cool.
dream. I had no idea what was happening in that moment, and it was like, where, what?
Now, this is totally off topic. Do you think they really used like a dead deer, or was that a prop? Or
It was a live deer.
I thought so too.
It was a stunt deer.
Did they
He's
really
still
hit a
alive.
deer?
He's the jackass deer.
What?
He's the Johnny Knoxville of
It's an
deer.
honest question.
Oh no, your question's fine. It's fine. I just love that you didn't catch on as fast as I did. Fucking Ben, you asshole.
Okay, let's put a cork in this thing.
Yeah.
Emily, give me
The
your
second
final
we start
thoughts.
calling him an asshole, then it's like, oh, let's change subject.
This movie had a lot of comparisons to The Godfather, and I know, Ben, you brought up Martin Scorsese. I feel like those comparisons don't do the movie justice. I feel like those comparisons, it's its own entity. Like, yes, I know that those movies are great and they're wonderful, but I feel like this movie stands on its own. Yeah, there's remnants of some amazing crime movies from before, but I feel like this movie is its own, and I love that about it.
Yeah, it can be an homage and have influence from other movies, but it definitely is its own entity, especially the way that it ties in the prison stuff with the crime stuff, with the prophetic stuff.
It didn't feel like it was stealing.
No, not at all. Or trying to mimic.
It didn't have
It was
that
just
feel. Yeah, exactly.
Dylan, wrap it up.
Thought it was a fantastic movie. I'm usually not a person that's huge on foreign films, but like every time I've ever said that, I come back to it and go, that was a good foreign film. I don't know why I don't watch more.
Sounds like you are a fan of foreign films, Dylan.
Yeah, you should start to watch more.
That, woof. That was a tough one.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Amour is a French movie that was nominated for Best Picture in 2012. And it's a rough watch, folks, but we will be getting to it when we get to that year. I'll say right now, Dylan is definitely not on that episode because of his hatred for it.
I didn't hate it, but it was just like, I wanted it to be the last movie, not the first movie of the Best Picture Showcase. But after we saw it, I was like, I am so happy that was first.
Yeah.
Because we got that depression out of the way.
Okay, Ben, what'd you think?
I loved it. I love this movie. I really appreciated all the strong performances. There wasn't really a weak link performance in the entire movie. Like all of the little side characters were great. It had that very lived-in realism feel to it, which I appreciate. I love the grittiness when we get to talking about prison or crime movies, and this had that in spades. Please don't ever try to make an American remake of this. That's my plea to.
Please don't do that.
I swear I think I read on Wikipedia that they tried.
I think I read that too, and stop trying. Just leave this one be.
Yeah.
What's your favorite idea? Mine is being creative.
How do you get the idea?
I just try to think creatively.
Are we ready for some twit slides?
Yeah.
Number 1. Please tell me, how would your opponent climb the social hierarchy to become a mob boss in prison?
I would say for Ben, and this is honest to God, his intelligence. Because there are so many moments where I'm just like, fuck you, Ben, for being so goddamn smart. Because you got some brains in there, man. And I'll say that your intelligence would get you to that hierarchy there.
Man, that's really sweet. Now I gotta go sweet, don't I? I mean, for
No,
Dylan,
you
it would
don't.
probably be sucking dick. No, I think Dylan would be able to ingratiate himself with other prisoners. He's a very personable guy, very easy to talk to, and his mom will constantly smuggle him in treats. And
Totes.
Oh!
treats in prison. Like he's gonna be the guy, the go-to guy. He's Red. He's the Red of the prison system. He's a guy who knows how to get things. And the way is his mom.
Yeah.
That makes
Mommy
sense.
wouldn't give up on her baby boy.
Never. Just like
that's
Mother.
another movie we've seen. Okay, number 2. Who would haunt your dreams and become your ghost friend? It could be living or dead.
Are we talking famous person or just anybody in our lives?
I don't care. But make it funny, damn it.
I think I'll forever be haunted by the deer from this movie. I think that deer that did that amazing stunt, I think he will forever be with me, and it will inspire me to do great things.
You're going to become best friends with it?
Yeah.
Give me an interaction.
I would ride him, or at least pretend to ride him. And you would see me because I'm in prison, right?
Yep.
You would see me in my prison cell like I'm mounted on top of something, just kind of skipping around the room. Me and my majestic deer friend, and we'd go on adventures. It'd be the only way I could get through the day is pretending me and my dear friend were going on adventures. Kind of like Turner and Hooch.
Honestly, I can hear this just. And that's deer. That's that deer trying to talk to you in Morse code. He's clacking them hooves together. I'm going to go personal on this one, and it's a person I think about almost every day. One of my mom's best friends. His name was Daniel, and he is actually, my son is named after him. And he was probably the biggest fatherly influence I ever had. Sadly, he didn't live long enough, really. He died of HIV/AIDS in like the 90s when I was in like 5th grade. But honestly, I think about him almost every day, and I really think that he would be a person that would always kind of be there as that kind of conscience kind of thing. Like, would he accept that? Would he like that? Would he want me to do something like that? I don't know.
Oh my God, Dylan, stop with your meaningful bullshit. Sorry, I love you.
You're going very sweet and sentimental today. So,
well, how do you want me to be?
No,
I don't know. I'm a sweet, sentimental person, you fucking dick.
Okay, last one. Ben, for this, I need you to take your headphones off. Okay, Dylan.
Yeah.
I want you to convince me that you are a prophet of some kind. You have no more than 30 seconds. You ready? Set?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Go, convince me.
Emily, I can just see it right now that you and your husband are going to grow to tremendously huge things. I've dreamed of this. I've seen it in my head. You guys are going to be great. I'm a little drunk. And when I get drunk, I get kind of sentimental like this. So.
And you get prophetic when you're drunk?
Yeah, I do. I see good things in the future for you guys. It's gonna turn out really good. I suck
You're
at
garbage.
this.
I love you.
I know. Mwah.
Okay.
He fucking did it again, Ben. He fucking did it again.
Okay.
So you better show him up a little bit with this.
Go even sweeter and more sentimental?
You'll get to listen to this later and you're going to go, fucking Dylan.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. Convince me and Dylan that you're a prophet of some kind. You have 30 seconds. Ready? Go.
Okay. Think of a number 1 through 10. It's 7. I know it is. You don't even have to say anything. You can see it in your eyes. It's a 7. I foresaw a 7 before you even asked that question. That's how good I am. That's how prophetic I am. Go ahead. Think of something else. No, don't ever do that. See? I knew what you were thinking, and I talked you out of it because I knew that it wasn't right for you. Dylan, think of a naked woman. Dylan, that's gross.
Who is it? Who is it, Ben? Who is it?
He's not a prophet anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Question over.
Oh.
Now let's all agree to never be creative again.
I'm just going to point out that the first number I actually think of. The first number I thought of was actually 9. So, but that's because so many of my students always pick 7. So I try to think of like different numbers.
I think that you're just saying that for podcast ratings.
I'm not.
Okay. It's not about the content, Emily. It's about truthiness.
Let's play a game.
Shall we play a game?
I despise guessing games.
I have this great game. Makes you think and it helps your memory.
Let the games begin.
Well, in line with that last question of Emily's, my game is very similar to it. This week's game is called A Prophet. So Dylan's going to play this week. And Dylan, I want to see just how prophetic you can be by predicting what movie will be the answer to my prompt. So I'm going to give you an actor or a movie-involved person, and you need to just answer the question how I would answer it. So I went through all these people's IMDb pages, picked my favorite movie of theirs, and I ensured that you will have at least heard of all the movies that I've picked, okay? So I'm going to name an actor or movie-involved person. You tell me what is Ben's favorite movie of theirs.
Okay.
And away we go. Carrie Fisher.
Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Incorrect. Julia Roberts.
Pretty Woman.
Incorrect. Dustin Hoffman.
Hook.
Correct. Gwyneth Paltrow.
I knew that one.
Hook.
Correct. John Williams.
Shit, she's in that?
Hook.
Correct. Robin Williams.
Hook.
Correct. Maggie Smith.
Hook.
Way to go. Glenn Close.
Hook.
That's correct. Bob Hoskins.
Hook.
Correct. Steven Spielberg.
Hook. They're coming in faster. Hook.
Incorrect. Incorrect.
E.T.
It is E.T.
Yes! I win the game.
Way to go. You guys are true prophets. Dang it. I should have put Dustin Hoffman further down the list. Shit.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
A little bit. Roofy. Oh!
Well, Dylan and Ben, I hope you had a great time. I know I certainly did. Next week, we are going to be watching Fish Tank, yet another movie that both Ben and I haven't seen, and we will be having on our friends from the Book Retorts.
Yeah, excited to see them again. Also, did you guys know Carrie Fisher wrote Hook?
Oh,
That's
did she
not
do
true.
Yes, it is.
Punch Up?
That's insane, and
She's
I love
like
that.
the main person that's credited with the screenplay. Like if you look up written by, she's number one.
Oh,
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Makes me love that movie even more. But before we go today, Emily, because you spent so much time in Italy, around, I'm sure, Italian mobsters, in your best Italian mobster voice, give us I Drink Your Podcast, I Drink It Up.
Io bevo il tuo podcast. Io bevo tutto.
Oh my God. That
Please
was amazing.
don't shank me.
Everyone, make sure you subscribe to us. We love you all.
Yes, and check us out next week when we do Fish Tank. Have a good rest of your week, folks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.